I'm getting ready to film here, getting all set up, and I'm afraid these goats are going to be a nuisance. So if you hear chomping in the video, it's these guys. Go somewhere else, guys. There's a whole like 7 acres that you guys could eat at. And it has to be right next to me. It's what it's like having little kids, and this is what it's like having goats. The sponsor of our wellness chat today is Element. Element is my favorite electrolyte. I've been using it for a long time, and even throughout all of the different changes that I've made in my diet over the last several years, Element has been a constant. I still use it every day. Right now I'm using about 1 packet per day, and that makes me feel my best. Element comes in a lot of different flavors, and they're all very delicious. They have warm chocolatey flavors that are more for like the winter time, although you could enjoy them any time of the year. But then they also have some really nice summer flavors. This is their new summer flavor for the year, the lemonade salt. It's very, very delicious. I have been enjoying it quite a lot over the last month or so. If you would like to try out Element and see if it is something you want to add to your everyday routine, you can get a free sample pack just by using my link, drinkelement.com/indigo, drinklmnt.com/indigo. Click that link, place an order for anything on the website, and they will automatically add a free sample pack that has 4 of their most popular flavors, 2 of each flavor, so 8 sticks total. That way you can taste all of the favorites and see which ones you like the best. So if you want to take advantage of that, just use my link. There's a clickable link down in the description. And thanks again to Element for sponsoring the video today. I'm going to try not to squint too terribly while I'm talking to you guys. The lighting is great because it is a beautiful day here, but we got a little bit of cloud cover and I'm sitting underneath this beautiful tree, but it is very bright. And so I feel like I'm going to be squinting at you guys the whole time. Okay, in this wellness chat, we are going to go over some blood work that I just got back from about 5 weeks after I have drastically increased my carbohydrate content and drastically decreased my fat content and kind of, I guess, moderated my protein content. I did lower it a little bit, but it's not like it's drastically low. So starting May 7th, which was about 5 weeks ago, I started my sugar diet experiment. That lasted for 12 days. And basically what I did in that was I ate only fruit and honey during the day, and then somewhere around 3 or 4 p.m. I would eat a meal that included some starch, some lean protein, and some vegetables, and then I was still able to have fruit, in the evening. And so I did that for about 12 days. And then after that, and I will do another video going into more detail about like what I'm doing now and like moving forward after the sugar diet experiment, like what my diet, how many of these changes are staying and what I'm kind of doing moving forward. But basically what I've done since my sugar diet experiment, so that would be from May 19th through now, is I have continued with the higher level of carbohydrates. I saw some really cool things come from raising my carbohydrates, and I'm like, I'm gonna keep it up for a little while and see what happens. So I have been eating probably between 350 and 400 grams of carbohydrates per day. My fat content has come in probably somewhere between 20 and 40 grams per day, although I do occasionally have like regular meals, like celebration meals with the family, things like that. And so there are some days where I'm a little higher, there's some days where I'm a little lower, but I've been coming in around probably 30 to 40 most days, especially since I finished the sugar diet experiment. I don't know if you guys can hear the ducks over there, but they're coming out of the pond and they look like they want to come over here as well. So I get out of the house in order to, get some quiet from the kids. And, I get surrounded by the chomping goats and the quacking ducks. That's my life right now. So this is real life. Okay. And so then my protein on the sugar diet, I was keeping it around probably between 60 and 80. It ended up being, I was trying to keep it closer to 80, but it was kind of hard with that one meal a day that was so incredibly satiating. I didn't feel like I could get in as much protein as I intended. So I was getting probably between 60 and 80 grams of protein per day while I was doing the sugar fast experiment. Since then, I've probably been getting in maybe 60 to 100, depending on the day. And it really has varied from day to day. So what I basically have done is go on a high carb, low fat diet, which I never thought I would say that. That is not something that I expected. But I am just going with how I'm feeling and trying to keep an open mind and just kind of look at the data from a non-emotional perspective and just see what happens, because I have been on the low carb, high fat train basically my whole dieting experience since I was like 19 years old when I started the Atkins diet. And I have not delved very deeply into high carb, especially. I don't think I've ever delved into a truly high carb, low fat diet. There have been periods where I've done lower fat for a time, but it was not in the context of higher carbs. So very, very different, I am finding. And so it's really interesting to experiment with something that I've really never done before, and kind of get the dogma out of my head about, oh, this is what's going to happen when you do something like this. And then just kind of go along for the ride and see what happens. And I've already shared some of the effects. I did a video about the things that I didn't expect. Actually, there's 2 videos about my results and then about the most surprising thing about my sugar fasting, sugar diet experiment. So definitely watch those if you want more details. But this video, I want to go over the blood work because, I've gone through these, about 5 weeks of this higher carb, lower fat diet, and I've experienced certain things, but I was like, in my mind, I was like, what if I get my blood tested and my insulin's like 40? Or what if my A1C goes up to 6.5? Like all these things where I'm like, this is great. This experience I'm having is great and interesting, but I need to see some real data with, not that that's the only real data, but I need to see some like hard numbers as well. I think it's really important to take into consideration blood work and symptoms and how you feel. Like they all are important. We shouldn't put all of our eggs in just one basket. So I'm excited to dive into the blood work part of it. So first off, we will talk about A1C. I got my A1C done last October. So this is after I had transitioned to a much higher carb diet than I was on keto. That was when I was around 200 grams of carbs per day, around 120 to 140 grams of protein, and 80 to 100 grams of fat per day. So back then, not keto, already transitioned to carbohydrates. My A1C was 5.3. And when I got it done just a few days ago, it had gone up to 5.4. So it went up 0.1. Obviously, I don't want to see it go up 0.1 every time I get my blood tested from here on out. So it is definitely something I will put a pin in and make sure that I watch. 5.4 is still in a very normal range. And considering I basically doubled my carbohydrate intake and went on a high carb diet for the first time ever, and it only went up 0.1, I'm happy with that for now. But again, I will definitely be keeping an eye on it and make sure it doesn't just keep creeping up. So 5.3 to 5.4 on my A1C. And I will mention here, when I was on keto, I got my A1C run a few times in those years, and it always was around 5. So 5.0, I saw 4.9, 5.1. That's kind of where it was landing on keto. So around that 5.1 area on keto, going up to 5.3 on moderate carb, and then going up to 5.4 on high carb, lower fat. That's all okay as long as it doesn't keep going up. So we'll keep an eye on that. Next, I want to talk about hs-CRP. And this is something that a lot of people were curious about with me increasing my carbohydrates. hs-CRP is a good indication of inflammation in your body. So I had a lot of people saying that sugar is inflammatory and that you're going to just be bringing all kinds of inflammation in your body eating the amount of sugar and carbohydrates that, I have been eating. And so I was really curious to see, like, another one of those things where I'm like, am I going to get my hs-CRP tested and it's going to, be 10, which is bad. So back when I was on keto, I had my hs-CRP tested a few times and it came back in a real good range. I got 0.9, I got 1.0, I got 1.2, and the ideal is under 1. Around 1 and a little above is not terrible. It's just best if it's under 1. So I was, right there around 1 when I was on keto. So my hs-CRP from a couple of days ago, after 5 weeks of eating around 400 grams of carbs per day was 0.8. So I actually did see my hs-CRP go down. Again, this is a marker of inflammation in the body. And so for me at this point, it doesn't look like the increase in carbohydrates is directly impacting my inflammation levels in my body. So super happy with that. So now we're going to talk about the big one, insulin. I had so many comments from people saying, especially when I'm talking about like the CGM and my blood glucose, saying, blood glucose is important, great, but what is this doing to your insulin? It's going to wear out your pancreas, eating all of those carbs, all that stuff. So this is one that I was really, really interested to see what this increase in carbs would do. Because on the one hand, we have the keto carnivore world, and the wisdom there is the more carbs you eat, basically, the more insulin you need to take care of them. And that's going to wear out your pancreas, and you're going to end up becoming insulin resistant because the noise of insulin is too loud. And that's what causes insulin resistance. What I've been learning, though, is there's a completely different understanding of carbs and insulin in the vegan world, in the bioenergetic or pro-metabolic world. There's just a very different understanding of carbohydrates and insulin. And I'm not going to, try to explain it all right now. But the idea is that when you eat more carbohydrates and you have the fat in your diet lower, your body actually becomes more insulin sensitive. And fat is actually something that is gumming up the signaling. Your cells are busy with the fat that you're eating, and so the insulin can't work as well with the carbohydrates, and so that is what's causing insulin resistance. But once you bring that fat a little bit lower, your body can hear the insulin so much better. You actually become more insulin sensitive, and you actually need less insulin in order to take care of this large amount of carbohydrates. So I'm like, I'm just going to go by my experience and see what happens with all these things. So I got my insulin tested back in October, and that is after I had transitioned to that 200 grams of carbs. So I wasn't on keto at this point. I had already transitioned to having more carbs in my diet. And at that point, my insulin was 6.8. which is still in a healthy range. I was very happy with it considering, going from keto to more moderate carb is a little bit scary when it comes to insulin. So I was really happy with 6.8. And I really did not know what to expect when I went to get my insulin tested now after 5 weeks of sugar dieting, high carb, low fat. Just a couple days ago, my fasting insulin was 6.0. So it went down by 0.8 after almost doubling my carbohydrate intake. It still is like blowing my keto mind. I still have things in my mind from my keto diet saturation. I was saturated in the keto diet world, and I have all of those voices still in my mind. And the idea that I can go up to 400 grams of carbohydrates per day and see my insulin, my fasting insulin, go down by 0.8 kind of blows my mind. One last thing about the blood work that I'm just going to touch on really fast because it's important to me as someone who has dealt with iron deficiency. I was really concerned about what my iron levels would do during this because I have reduced my red meat intake. I have not been supplementing iron for many, many months now. So I am like, am I going to go on this higher fruit, higher vegetable diet and lower meat diet? And, my iron is going to tank again. I was also really curious after I started with the sugar diet. I noticed that my fingernails were getting pinker, like they were growing in pinker. And I was just watching, I still have like a line of white across. And like it's getting smaller and smaller as my fingernails are growing in pinker, which was like wild to me because I had never seen that even from like my iron infusions. And while I was carnivore, my iron was rock bottom. My ferritin was rock bottom. All of my iron markers were bad. And so again, this is another one of those things where the longer I'm in this diet nutrition world, the more it seems like there's these things that seem to make sense on the surface, And then once you start digging a little deeper, you're like, it's completely opposite of what I thought. And so this is another one where I was like, okay, I'm seeing my fingernails coming in pinker. That's not supposed to happen when you reduce your meat intake and increase your plant intake. That's just not. And so I was curious about what would happen with my iron markers. So first of all, my ferritin, which wasn't the exciting part, it went up 3 points, which is better than going down, of course, but it's still kind of in the margin of error. So I'll say it maintained pretty well, which is fine. It's still lower than I would prefer, but you know, I have all these other great benefits. I'm not having iron deficiency symptoms, so I'm not quite as worried about getting that ferritin number up as long as I'm feeling good. But ideally, I would like to see it up a little higher. Anyways, but it went up 3 points. Fine, whatever. Okay, we'll take it. But my blood iron, like total iron, went up to a higher level than I've ever seen it. And it's still well within normal. So I'm not, worried about like hemochromatosis or anything like that. But it was higher than all the months where I was getting iron infusions. You'd think getting an iron infusion, your iron would just be like through the roof after that. But somehow now, after reducing my iron intake, my blood iron is higher. I don't understand it. And so maybe that's what's contributing, like that's what's causing the pink in my nails. I don't know. Also my iron binding capacity is also higher than I've ever seen it. And all my, about 3 years now that I have been testing iron regularly, I've never seen my iron binding capacity as high as it is now. What is this? My hemoglobin also has maintained. That's the first thing I noticed after doing red light therapy. I think the red light therapy also is a part of this. I don't think that there's any one thing, the carbs, the red light therapy, that is like the answer for everything. It all kind of works together. But I noticed that my hemoglobin had gone up to a higher level than I'd ever seen after starting red light therapy. And my hemoglobin on this test was still good. So that's maintaining well. So I'm seeing so many positive signs. The only thing as far as this blood work that I could kind of see as a negative is that A1C going up, that 0.1. But again, that's kind of in the margin of error as well. And if it doesn't keep going up, it's not a concern. And because I have seen like lower fasting blood sugar levels, my thoughts on the little bit higher A1C is that it's coming from like postprandial, because I'm eating more carbs throughout the day. My blood sugar is higher throughout the day from that, but my blood sugar regulation seems to be better in that when I have the carbs, my blood sugar goes up, which you expect it to, and then it comes back down. And then overnight, it's able to come back down to a really good fasting blood sugar range. So I'm not super concerned about that as long as it doesn't keep going up. So anyways, that is all of my mind-blowing blood work to share with you today. Let me know if it blew your mind or if that's what you expected. I'd be curious to know. Thanks so much for hanging out with me for this wellness chat, and I will see you again in the next video.